On June 14, 2014, the Storm Prediction Center issued a slight risk for severe weather for June 16th, covering areas in northeastern Nebraska, western Iowa, southeastern South Dakota, and a small part of southwestern Minnesota. A developing low-pressure area and increasing instability in the atmosphere were expected to contribute to an outbreak from the 16th to the 18th. A slight risk was maintained for the Day 2 outlook, covering roughly the same area as the day before. By the morning of the 16th, conditions had become even more favorable for severe weather, leading the SPC to issue a moderate risk for northeastern Nebraska, northwestern Iowa, far southeastern South Dakota, and a small portion of southern Minnesota. The risk included a 10% risk of tornadoes EF2 or higher, 45% risk of high winds, and a 45% risk of hail 2 inches or larger. Around this time, moisture from the Gulf of Mexico had begun to move northward into the risk area, pushing dew points into the 60s and 70s. Temperatures had also risen into the low to mid-80s. Additionally, a shortwave trough had materialized over eastern South Dakota and Nebraska. Shortwave troughs provide a lift for developing thunderstorms and are associated with larger systems that provide other components for thunderstorms, such as wind shear and instability. Additionally, Kate values had reached nearly 5,500 joules per kilogram. At 3:10 p.m. Central Daylight Time, the SPC issued a particularly dangerous situation tornado watch for much of northeastern Nebraska. The watch included a high likelihood of tornadoes of EF2 to EF5 strength, a moderate likelihood of winds less than 74 miles per hour, and a high probability of severe hail. Shortly before the issuance of this tornado watch, the SPC increased part of the tornado probability in northeastern Nebraska to a 15% risk. At around 2:30 p.m., a storm formed in Boone County, Nebraska. By 3:04, the storm had strengthened and now met the criteria for the National Weather Service to issue a severe thunderstorm warning for the storm. About 30 minutes later, at 3:38, a brief tornado touched down northwest of Madison, Nebraska. The tornado caused minor damage and was subsequently rated EF0. 2 minutes after this tornado dissipated, another tornado developed southwest of Stanton. This tornado traveled northeast, producing EF0 to EF1 damage over mostly open fields, before causing a small area of EF3 damage to a home west of town. After this, the tornado decreased in strength to EF0 intensity before reaching peak winds of 170 miles per hour near Spurville. 2 homes received EF4 damage here. Luckily, however, no one was killed or injured. The tornado then dissipated at 4:11 after traveling 12.1 miles and causing $2.25 million in damage. Around the time of this tornado's dissipation, 2 more tornadoes formed close to one another south of the town of Pilger. The eastern tornado slowly picked up speed as it traveled northeast towards the town. It caused low-end EF2 damage to 2 farm outbuildings south of the Elkhorn River with estimated wind speeds at 112 miles per hour. After crossing the river, the tornado entered Pilger at EF4 intensity, causing widespread damage to the town. Several well-constructed homes were entirely swept away, a church was destroyed, and large grain silos in the middle of town were toppled. The highest estimated wind speed in town was 189 miles per hour. After leaving town, the tornado weakened to EF1 strength before increasing back to EF3 intensity as it debarked hardwood trees on the Stanton and Cumming County border. The other tornado that formed shortly after this tornado had been paralleling it for nearly its entire life, and by now, both twisters had grown into violent wedges. These twin wedges are an extremely rare occurrence and could easily be a storm chaser's career highlight. After this, the 2 tornadoes crossed paths, destroying 2 houses at EF4 intensity. The second of these tornadoes then dissipated at 4:39 after causing 1 fatality and over $1.3 million in damage during its 11.5 miles off the ground. The Pilger tornado, however, continued northeast still at EF4 strength. 1 minute after the second tornado's dissipation, another tornado touched down east of Altona and quickly intensified. As the Pilger tornado began roping out and approaching this tornado, the Fujiwara effect took place. This effect happens when 2 vortices come into close proximity and interact with one another. If one of the vortices is stronger than the other, it can merge with a weaker vortex. As the Pilger tornado began being sucked into the new tornado, its ground speed rapidly increased to 94.6 miles per hour, making this the fastest forward speed ever in a tornado. The Pilger tornado dissipated at 4:46 p.m. after being on the ground for 23.9 miles. It caused 1 fatality, 20 injuries, and $14.25 million in damage. The tornado that the Pilger tornado merged with traveled northward at mainly EF2 strength and caused 2 small areas of damage at EF4 intensity, with winds estimated to be at 170 miles per hour southeast of Wakefield. The tornado then weakened to EF1 to EF2 strength, where it remained at for the rest of its 9.5 miles on the ground. June 16th was not the only day of this tornado outbreak. The SPC issued a large slight risk for the following day with a 10% risk of tornadoes. This day included a tornado family near Coleridge, Nebraska, which consisted of 6 tornadoes. One of these was a 1.1 mile wide EF3 with a very sporadic path. This tornado caused highly prominent ground scouring and had estimated winds of 155 miles per hour. There was also another EF3 on this day in Montana, which was only the 15th ever tornado in the state with a rating of EF3 or higher. The day after this also had a slight risk accompanied with a 10% tornado risk. The strongest tornado of the day was rated EF4 with winds of 170 miles per hour near Alpena, South Dakota. This photogenic tornado injured 2 people and caused $300,000 in damage during its 11.5 miles on the ground. The outbreak as a whole had 77 tornadoes, which caused 3 fatalities, one of which was non-tornadic, 28 injuries, and over $127.5 million in damage. 4 of the 5 EF4s from this outbreak were estimated to have winds of 170 miles per hour, equivalent to a low-end EF4. The Pilger tornado was the only one to be rated higher, with winds of 191 miles per hour, equivalent to a high-end EF4. Many people believe it should have been an EF5. Despite the lack of tree growth and the still vacant lots in Pilger, the small town has rebuilt in the years following the tornado and will continue to grow in years to come. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please consider subscribing so you can learn more about weather phenomena on my channel.